from when Colin Powell went on television all those years ago before 2006 that, you see what's in this vial here? This is weapons of mass destruction, and this is what the war is going to be about. They didn't strike anything at Parchin. There's clear evidence that the...
Wow. It's a really fascinating day for the great game. You know, I always refer to what's going on out there as the great game because it is. And most of our livelihoods depend on it being played out, not to mention all the nice stuff we get to buy and have fun with. So anyway, you know, the players in the States are doing it for Americans, ostensibly, or for their own personal wealth and power and prestige. And the same can be said of other places around the world, let's say Malaysia or Japan, or dare we say Liechtenstein, but you know what I'm talking about. And everybody uses propaganda, right? Yeah, the Russians, the North Koreans, the Chinese, but also the Americans, the Canadians, and the Swedish and Finland, they use it. So it's ubiquitous: communications, public relations, marketing, propaganda. It's ubiquitous, folks. It's a great tool. So anyway, we're so easily manipulated. And I, always refer to people I think know better than me. I'm not trying to be an expert or a cool guy here. I'm just curious and a big fan of paying attention to the great game. Maybe I have too much time on my hands, or maybe I'm crazy, but I enjoy it. And today was an incredibly fascinating day for it. Someone I follow on Substack, Simplicious the Thinker, he's really good. Of course, normal people in the US who are on a steady diet of cable TV and so on, corporate media. Look, I'm not saying corporate media is bad or evil. I'm just saying they have certain objectives. They are reading from a certain script in most cases. Maybe in the olden days, there was more freedom to do investigative journalism and be less partial. But these days, we're in a desperate, flailing period of history where great powers are trying with all their might to control the resources at the end of days. We could play this game for another 10,000 years if, oil and gas emissions didn't wreak havoc on our ecosystems and on the weather, global heating, climate change, and all that, the oceans. But it's not just that. Western industrial, modern technological modernity, the whole project from going back hundreds of years, thousands of years, has produced a situation where we're more than capable of exploiting all the resources on the planet. Like a paperclip maximizing machine, we become a kind of virus, metaphorically speaking, that attacks the operating system of life on Earth. Life begets life. Life depends on life. And we're destructive. So later I'll share something from Eric Lee, but not today. There are a couple articles having to do with that are very interesting. But today I just want to focus on the Syria thing. Anyway, these are the end times, folks, but it's not an eschatological program like, the Zionists and Christian Zionists and religious fanatics would have you believe. It's just the manifestation of the outcomes and externalities of industrial global, economies at scale, capable of exploiting vast amounts of resources. We're the beneficiaries of it. So I get to go shopping and traveling and driving my car and whatnot. I'm not a hypocrite. I know where I stand, and I'm not addicted to hopium and I don't think I'm going to save the world, that my art or movie or TV series or anything I do on camera here or writing on my blog is going to make a difference. A lot of people do really good work. And what difference have they made? None. If we wanted to live differently, we could. We could have made that choice thousands of years ago. We could have listened to the wise sages of antiquity and managed our behavior. But we're not that kind of animal. So inevitably, someday, I think we're going to run out of steam. You know, you can discuss long-termism and you can discuss posterity and all that kind of stuff. I think most people are concerned with themselves, their immediate friends, family, and maybe their grandchildren, or if they're lucky enough to live long enough, their grandchildren's grandchildren, right? These immediate generations that you can touch and see and be concerned about. At least in the olden days, we were close, maybe less close now that we have social media and we can reside in different bubbles, divorced from our family at the dinner table via our pocket device, our smartphones. But anyway, people want to keep their jobs, their positions, their paychecks. But like I said in my post, before I read these things, before these things came out, you know, the Syrian army was starving. And there are reasons for that. I didn't know at the time, but obviously there are lots of reasons, complex reasons. Why weren't they feeding them? Russia, Iran, you know, Assad, Turkey, you know. The whole Middle East thing is an interesting quagmire, and it's the center of the great game now. But, you know, that part of the Middle East, the seat or the beginning, where the beginning of civilization or where civilization began, has always been important. And the Silk Road, Eurasia, and so on, until later on when navies, you know, Spain, Portugal, Britain, and now the United States became important because water has always been a great way to move around the world and transport goods and so on. Thank you, Amazon, and thank you for, what's the other company? Letting me shop like a billionaire. Anyway, before it was the Silk Road, and that's like the origins of the great game, the end of the 19th and early 20th century, but it goes back way before then. You know, talk about Napoleon, you know, talk about all the other empires that came before, and never forget the Ottoman Empire and the struggles between the West and the Ottoman Empire, and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's a big deal, and what's going on in Syria is a big deal, and much will be said, and a whole bunch of bullshit and lies will be pumped out by, you know, think tanks and, you know, mainstream media and all that stuff. So it's important to broaden your scope, your attention, look at different things if you want to understand what's going on in the great game. And there are lots of sources out there, and they're not all Americans or British. They're not all from the Anglosphere, Australian, and so on. People in Russia actually have a brain. They think, you know, people do good work everywhere. And yeah, Iranians aren't stupid, weak people. But anyhow, there's lots of good sources everywhere if you want to find them. And a lot of good sources in the West, obviously, if you want to find them. And you can learn a lot. What good is it going to do you? I don't know. But at least you'll be mentally and maybe spiritually and maybe in a stoic sense or an existentialist sense prepared for what's to come, what's happening today that we don't notice, that's off the radar. So today on the Radar, we're going to talk about Simplicious article and Chris Hedges, who is talking with Alistair Crook. And these guys are on the same page, although slightly different, but incredibly well-informed, well referenced and so on. And sincere, honest reporting, less biased than usual. I trust Chris Hedges. I like his voice. Maybe you don't, but I think he's good. Alistair Crook is definitely an expert in this domain. And whoever's doing the writing for Simplicious is definitely someone I trust, because even though he has a different slant and is more sympathetic to the Eurasian thing, and I don't know really if he is. I don't know. He might be completely nonpartisan, so to speak. I don't know. But he presents both sides clearly and honestly, with lots of references to materials that you won't see from Western outlets. Although it's interesting that a lot of these sources that he links to are Western leaders, saying the quiet part out loud all the time, but we don't hear it. We don't listen because we don't have expertise in geopolitics and these kinds of things. So we're unable to pick out the coded language when it pops up. Unless you're really focused on that, on a domain, these things will just fly over your head. So I'm going to just recommend that you look. I won't read anything from this because it's so good. And I posted on Facebook, Globe Hackers, the whole article, of course, without the links to without the references to the videos and other things that he presents and links and so on, because I can't do it on that platform. And he embeds his videos, so you can't just click away and copy and paste the source. But they're good sources. They're just embedded in his blog, in his Substack. So also Chris Hedges, he's on YouTube and also on Substack. So he's very easy to access. I don't think there's necessarily a paywall. If you sign up, you can be a free subscriber. You know how that works. And get that information. You can see the whole video on YouTube, and it will really round out things. The point is, this fifth generation World War III warfare thing is ramping up, and it's getting hotter and hotter. Anyway, none of this stuff in the Middle East is good news for anybody. It's bad news for all of us. The fact that we can't cooperate and work together and build peace and do things differently. People are angry in the Middle East, and they have good reason to be if you understand the history. Terrorist groups are the United States' friends, Uncle Sam's friends, until they're not. When they're friends, they're just, people like the woke, reformed terrorist leaders that are going to take over Syria now. They're our friends now. They've grown up. They're a liberation movement. It's all language. It's all propaganda. When you go against Uncle Sam's wishes, you're not a friend. And, since the Obama administration, they've been crippling Syria. So it was just a matter of time before Assad had to go. You can vilify Assad, but you don't know anything about the man. You just don't. You only know that some people on TV tell you he's a bad guy. So whatever. Leaders of countries like that, especially in different cultures where they kind of respect and require strong man leadership, as opposed to a bunch of weak idiots just cycling through corrupt, well-financed campaigns just to get paid more, like they do in the States. I mean, yes, all the defense institutions that, make the world safe for the rules-based order so that you can get your cool stuff at the big box store in Tulsa or wherever. It's all good for you if it trickles down, but someday it's not going to trickle down. This inequality is going to explode in your face. Things are going to get difficult, even in the United States with its resources. And then what are Americans going to do to one another? Do you think there's any way Americans could become fanatical? Ask Werner Herzog. Anyway, it's not going to be pretty. If you look at stochastic terrorism, or just lone wolf attacks like we've seen recently in the United States. These things are always there. They always happen on a weekly, monthly basis. When that starts becoming organized, it's going to be really rough in your country. Can you escape it? No. You know, you live in Denver, that's your town. Everyone will do their best. And, you know, this could take 6.5 to 8 years to really get rough in the States. Or it could be 30. I don't know. What do I know? It's not going to be good for anybody. Definitely not. So we better get our heads in order, understand what's going on. Maybe we can do some small thing about it. It's not about hopium. It's not about the future. It's really about our immediate future, which means next year and the year after that. It's somehow we've got to de-escalate this World War III that's happening right now. We've got to build peace. Whatever you or I can do about it in our small, insignificant ways would be helpful. I'm still a big fan of being informed or educated. Uh, it's not easy. I realize that. And I don't think I know everything or all of my sources are the right sources or whatever. But I think they're pretty good. And I think it is important to understand things. It's good for your sanity too, because then you don't wake up one morning in a panic. So I'm going to stop now. That went on too long. Anyway, read The Fall of Assad and what it makes for the Middle East. Alistair Crook on YouTube, and Simplicius the Thinker, Syria's Fall, in-depth analysis. And as I said, I posted both things on Facebook, Globe Hackers. Mine's at Bulliam T. Okay, so have a nice day. Take good care. Bulliam T out.